Welcome to Real Talk with Sarah. I'm your host, Sarah Roberts, and in this show, it's all about moving. There's a saying that goes, food is the most widely abused anti-anxiety drug, and exercise the most underutilized antidepressant. Now, I'm not suggesting that we can heal all of our mental health issues through diet and exercise alone, but the research is compelling, and if you are someone who hasn't exercised for a while, or if you struggle with finding the motivation to get moving, then you're gonna wanna settle in with me for the next hour as we talk with registered kinesiologist and exercise physiologist, Sarah Zahab, owner of Continuum Fitness. Sarah's going to share her best tips on ways we can all get moving more without ever even having to set foot in a gym. She'll also be sharing her very personal story of her struggle with body image, even as she walked across stages at fitness competitions internationally. You won't want to miss it. And later, we'll sit down with motivational speaker, life coach, and founder of Greco Fitness Studios, Tony Greco. Tony is the author of 2 books, including his latest, Strong Mind, Lean Body. And he's going to help us make the connection between the way we think and the way we move. So let's do this. Episode 2 of Real Talk with Sarah starts right now. Of meeting my first guest when I was suffering a knee injury. Well, I thought my problem was a knee injury until I met with her, and she helped me to uncover the root cause of my pain and created a plan for me to heal. I'm delighted to introduce you to my favorite registered kinesiologist and exercise physiologist, Sarah Zahab. Welcome, Sarah.
Thanks for having me, Sarah.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being here. And as I was saying that, I'm like, that's a lot of gists. So what I really liked when we worked together was the way that you looked at my body from such a holistic point of view. And is that what separates sort of registered kinesiologist and exercise physiologist from the typical personal trainer?
Well, a kinesiologist is essentially a specialist in human movement. And, we've undergone a 4-year university degree in health sciences. We've studied anatomy and physiology and biomechanics. But I think what's really key is what we were doing is understanding the body and trying to identify what the root cause of the issue is. So in our practice, we're going through, an in-depth assessment to try and identify where the movement deficiencies are. We're utilizing manual muscle testing, movement screens. We're really looking to optimize alignment, breathing mechanics, and gait. Really taking a look at all these things to help us understand where the muscle imbalances are, the muscle weaknesses are. The compensatory movement patterns, where are the, breaks in movement? Where are the movement deficiencies? And oftentimes, injuries, we think we've got a low back injury. Yeah. It's probably, my low back is weak. Yes. But oftentimes it could be a number of different factors contributing to the low back pain. Yeah. Perhaps it's an instability in the whole lumbopelvic region, weak transverse or weak multifidus, potentially, a tight areas up or below the low back area, and immobility in any of those areas. So it's really, it's important to kind of, we consider ourselves detectives, right? So if you're coming in with pain or an injury, we're really looking to discover the underlying issues, the root cause, not just addressing the symptoms, but looking to help, with correcting it.
And that's exactly how I felt when we worked together. Like I said, I thought it was a knee issue. Right. And you uncovered that it was a weak gluteus medius. Yes, glute med. And that's the thing. You're saying a lot of words that I'm like, oh yeah. And I'm like, I don't know what she's saying. But what's cool is when I worked with you, yes, you use the technical terms, but then you also really break it into plain English so that people can really understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to understand, especially as a mom, educating my children and helping them to understand, what these muscles are called, what is the proper terminology for your anatomy, really understanding your body and movements, and I think that's just, it's really key, right? And so taking it back into a very simplistic term, but essentially it was, you had a muscle imbalance, we corrected it, we built a solid foundation, and you were able to progress slowly from there.
I love it. Why do you think it's so what age do you think it's important to start teaching our kids the proper terms for muscles and body parts?
Well, my kids are pretty young, and they know what a quadricep is, and I think you can sort of integrate it into your everyday life, right? And it doesn't have to be like, oh, it's 6 o'clock, time for our anatomy lesson. You can sort of bring it into their lives in a very fun and simple way.
I really like that because I feel like it creates kids and then young adults and then adults that really understand how the body works.
Exactly.
And I think when we have that kind of information, we really feel more empowered.
That's
and
it.
we might want to take care of this beautiful, amazing body that we have, the one gift that we get.
That's it, exactly.
I love that. So they say sitting is the new smoking. I really want to get into this.
Right.
Tell me what your thoughts are on that, and what can we do to overcome when we have to sit so much for work and different things.
I remember doing a segment on CTV, I think it's been like 4 or 5 years, sitting is the new smoking. It's been around, it's been in mainstream media for years now. What we're seeing is that people who are sitting for 8 hours a day or more is essentially worse for our health than smoking, right? So, and what happens is when we're seated for long periods of time, it's our lymphatic system that becomes very stagnant, right? And so it's important, and it's very similar to, people have opted for stand-up workstations, which is great, but standing for 8 hours a day is also not ideal, right? So what's really important is that we make our workday a lot more dynamic. So incorporating movement, our bodies were designed and meant to move. So it's really important to take those breaks, at least 2 minutes on every hour, whether it's walking around, few squats, moving, walking meetings, or just taking, frequent trips around the office just to get, or if you do have a sit-stand workstation, varying that throughout the day so you're not stuck in one position. And I think a lot of people, there's a lot of guilt associated with taking that time off, right?
And also a lot of colleagues that are going to say, what's she doing over there? Doing her stretches? I'm busy working.
But we need to shift and change that mindset, right? Because someone who's going to take 30 minutes on their lunch break to perform, a full body workout, we know that the brain cells are way more active after physical activity. So they're coming back to their workstation invigorated, refreshed, focused. They're actually going to be more effective after that little movement break.
Isn't that amazing? So a great tip for bosses as well. So if you're seeing that your employees are moving around, be happy about that.
That's it,
right?
exactly.
That's a good sign.
It's, I don't know that we have the exact return on investment numbers, but there definitely is a return on investment, right?
Huge.
Decreased pain and strain. Musculoskeletal pain and strain is so huge in the workplace. And so if we can help to, reduce that, I think we can really have a positive impact.
Oh my gosh, we're talking a lot about kids, which is great. I'm wondering, how do we get the kids off of the iPads and the devices and video games? And how can we get our kids moving more from a young age?
I think it really needs to be instilled at a young age. My kids are 7 and 10, and they don't own devices, and we limit their screen time.
They're 7 and 10, and they don't own devices.
No, they're probably the only kids on the street that don't.
Okay.
But I think it's we feel very strongly about it as parents, and we're very fortunate to live in a neighborhood where there's a lot of kids, and they all play outdoors.
Nice.
And so on any given day, the doorbell is ringing 2 or 3 times. kids knocking, can so and so come out and play? And we really do encourage that. They're outside for hours at a time playing. And honestly, Sarah, if the TV is on and they're watching television, if the doorbell rings and someone's asking to play, they are happily going to turn the TV off, get out there and play with their friends. They're going to choose that over a screen. And I think it begins at a very young age, family hikes, family bike rides, getting the kids outside, getting them connected with nature, enjoying nature, and just having them understand that moving is just a part of what we do, right?
Oh, I love that. It makes me think of the old days. Like when I grew up, knocking on doors.
That's what we did.
Calling on our friends.
Yes, that's what we did. And that's go knock on your friends' doors, see if they want to go play.
But I love that you're essentially saying you absolutely can still have that old school experience if you decide that is important in your household.
Now, we live in a very, safe neighborhood. We're in a very quiet street, and we have a park across the street. And I think, there are multiple factors that come into play. But it seems to work for us.
Yeah, because I think that just technology is so addictive for adults and children alike. I mean, so I think that it's really important. Like you said, you're basically telling them that at 7 and 10, they're not going to have devices. Have you decided what age is appropriate?
We're still sort of working that out. We haven't decided yet, but we know that it's not going to be 12. We're still uncertain, but. Yeah, we're going to push it as long as we can, I think.
Do they talk about it? I'm curious because I know a lot of parents are sitting there at home and their 5-year-olds, their 6-year-olds, their 10-year-olds are definitely on devices a lot. So do you talk about this? Is this a conversation that you have with your girls?
It is. You know, I think it's important for them to understand that, you know, there's a time and a place and an age-appropriate, you know, way to obtain information. You know, if they do have access to the computer. My oldest does her homework on the computer at times, and the television is there. You know, we limit that time as well, but essentially, we don't own an iPad. They don't have any, you know, personal devices that are used for, you know, for games or, yeah. And you know, there was a time a few years ago where they were really, you know, asking for an iPad, and that sort of kind of went away, and they really haven't. It's been a while. We haven't discussed it recently.
Maybe there comes a point where they're just like, it's just, this is the way things are.
Yeah.
This is the way our household is run, and there's just no point asking about this yet. Like when the time comes, Mom's told us that it'll be there.
That's it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I want to change gears just a little bit regarding cardio, and I want to ask you about this because I think a lot of people think that the only way to get in shape is to do extensive cardio.
Right.
So I want your thoughts. Does everybody need cardio? If so, how much? What should we watch out for? What's the deal with it?
Well, I think everybody needs to move, right? And according to national guidelines, we need to be obtaining 150 minutes of physical activity, you know, throughout the week. I think cardio can be very beneficial. I really like to customize cardio based on different metabolic types. So there are some metabolic types that thrive on, you know, an abundant amount of cardiovascular activity. Their bodies do very well with it.
So just to pause you, so metabolic types, meaning people are, every person is one of 4 different metabolic types.
Exactly. So really helping to identify, you know, their genetic disposition and, you know, based on certain traits, you know, what sort of strength and cardiovascular exercises would be optimal for them. And so some people can do really well, you know, with longer bouts of cardiovascular work, but others do well with shorter bouts, you know, more high intensity interval training. Yeah. And that's something that I tend to, you know, prescribe a lot. And then others, depending on where they're at in their lives, you know, if they're suffering from adrenal fatigue, if they have multiple, you know, conditions, we may be limiting the cardio at the beginning and focusing on other factors, maybe more restorative work until we can get them to a place where we can incorporate. So I think it's a very, you know, it depends.
Yes.
You know, it's a very unique, and it's very similar to how we prescribe our exercise plans, right? Like there's no top 5 exercises for one person, right? It's really about identifying what your unique needs are and customizing a very purposeful and functional plan that's going to target, you know, each individual's unique needs.
Well, and I think that's what, again, makes what you do so remarkable, is that you really look at each person as an individual and you know, you really work a plan that's customized specifically for them. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on nutrition when it comes to being in shape and staying in shape and being healthy?
Well, we know that nutrition is such a huge element when it comes to, you know, maintaining our ideal body weight and achieving our goals. And honestly, Sarah, we refer out quite a bit when it comes to nutrition. We have holistic nutritionists and registered dietitians that we often refer out to because I really feel that it's important for that, you know, just like I am a specialist in my field, I feel like it's important for someone to seek out an expert and in helping to identify, you know, their unique needs, right? And then being able to, you know, ask questions directly. You know, we do provide, you know, very sort of essential nutritional advice, but I'm a really big fan of referring out, and we have a huge referral network that we, you know, that we often refer out to many different professionals.
But at the end of the day, it's extremely important.
Oh, it's huge.
Like,
it's huge.
Tell us about it in your own life with your girls. What does the food side of things look like? I mean, we know the movement's there. You guys are always a busy, active, hiking family. No one's sitting on devices.
Right.
What's it looking like at home that way?
We eat a lot of whole foods, and we cook almost every night. And sometimes it's just, whipping up some eggs or cutting up some veggies, some avocado. It can be very simple, especially in the summer when we're outside a lot.
I love that. I think a lot of people think a meal has to be steak, potatoes, vegetables.
No.
It can be soup. Eggs is a really easy
very
one.
simple.
Yeah.
But in the fall and winter, we're spending a little more time in the kitchen, cooking almost every evening. Again, could be very simple, could be a little more elaborate. Whole foods. We actually eat a mostly plant-based diet. I just find that it seems to, it's evolved over the years, and we'll talk about this a little more when I was competing. I mean, we talk about keto, and I did it before it was popular, right? I've eaten a lot of protein, but it's not really how I grew up. I grew up on more of a Mediterranean-style diet. So we've sort of over the years have shifted our nutrition, but it's mostly plant-based, whole foods. In the fall and winter, we're doing more soups, stews, chilies, and in the summer it's a little more fresh, more salads, raw vegetables. It's still incorporating protein and healthy fats, but just shifted a little bit based on the season.
Well, and like you said about customizing a workout plan, that's like with 7 billion people on the planet, 7 billion different diets.
Absolutely.
We all get to decide what works for us, but I think if we're all on the same page, it's got to be eating real food. I think we can all just decide.
100%.
Yeah, that's
whether it's higher in animal protein or higher in plant-based proteins.
Right.
I mean, it's just you need to identify what works best for your body.
Yeah.
And I do have clients that thrive on, animal protein and veg. That's what they do well on.
More of a paleo diet.
More of a paleo. That works really well for them. I've done it, we've done it, it just doesn't work for our family. So we've, it's shifted, but it's always whole foods, limiting that processed foods and, trying to eat as many vegetables as possible.
Definitely. I love the, crowding out the junk.
That's just
by just making sure that you get all of those things that you need. How do you keep your kids off of sugar?
That's a really tricky one, and we've gone through phases. I find, they know that Halloween is my least favorite, time of year because it's tricky. We do limit sugar in the house, and if I am going to bake some snacks for school, I will utilize, maple syrup or honey as an alternative to sugar. We focus more on fruit. Using that as a healthier alternative, and we don't live in a bubble. We still will have treats, and but we try and limit them as much as possible. And I
love that. And it's like when it's not in the home, you can really control it. So you can decide what you are actually going to bring into the home. And what you're going to say, you know what? Yeah, kids, you have to go to a friend's house to get that, or you have to go trick-or-treating to get that. You're not going to get
to grandma's.
Or to grandma's house. For sure. Well, Sarah, after the break, is going to share her very personal story of getting to the stage at fitness competitions while still struggling to accept her body. What she shares might just help us understand that it's less about what we see and more about how we feel that really matters when it comes to body image. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Real Talk. If you're just joining us, I've got Sarah Zahab, owner of Continuum Fitness, with me. And Sarah, thank you so much for being here to share your very personal story of your struggle with body image. I think this is a really important message.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So I was a dancer for many years. I started dancing when I was very young, when I was 3.
Wow, like ballet?
Ballet, and then it just, as a competitive dancer, it moves to like jazz, tap, hip hop. But ballet was my foundation. I did ballet for 18 years, and I danced competitively. I danced with a professional hip hop group, and when I was a teenager, I joined a Middle Eastern dance group as well. So I was dancing, probably 5 or 6 days a week. It was a pretty all-consuming part of my childhood and of my adolescence. And when I started university, I stopped dancing competitively, and I remember seeing these fitness competitions on TSN. And I thought, well, that would be pretty cool. It would be a really nice transition from dance and a really nice outlet for me. And so I started training for these fitness competitions. And the fitness competitions, you know, are essentially a routine, like a 2-minute routine, a dance, gymnastics, fitness-based routine, and then you're judged on your physique as well. So there's a, you know, bikini round as well. And so the routine was always the really fun part for me. You know, I love doing like the one-arm push-ups and the, you know, the jumps and the press holds and like it was just it was so fun. Training for fitness was super fun.
Because did it take you back to your dance roots?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was something I was really passionate about, and I really enjoyed it. And it was such a fun, you know, part of the training. But the dieting and getting lean for a show was something that was really difficult for me. And so I had coaches to help me, but it was a very, you know, I think it was very different, you know, back then when I competed. And my last competition was 2016. I had competed for 8 years.
Wow.
But it really took a toll on my body. And when I was competing, I was, you know, on a very calorie restricted diet. I was on a very typical like bodybuilding type of training regime and diet. So very low calorie, mostly just animal proteins, vegetables, no fruit, very, very, very little carbohydrate.
For how long leading up to the competition?
So it varied, but it was usually 12 to 16 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Depending on where you were, you know, because there's a lot of cycling, right? You get very lean for a show. It's unrealistic to maintain. Essentially, you should stay within 5 to 10 pounds of your you know, your show weight, but it's very difficult to do. So you may have a cheat day here and there, but it's a pretty strict 12 to 16 weeks. And I remember, so I was very fortunate to represent Canada at the Miss Fitness World competition 4 times. It was a really great experience. But in my last year of competing, you know, I missed half my cycles. I was under severe adrenal fatigue, you know, hormones.
Oh my gosh, you're saying you missed your periods?
Oh, at least half of them that year, for sure. And I was down to 11% body fat. And I remember thinking it wasn't lean enough. Like I wasn't lean enough. And I know, you know, logically that doesn't make any sense, but even in that very fit stage where I was like 6-pack and very lean, I remember it was a very all-consuming state, right? It was a very addictive, you know, all-consuming kind of...
And competitive.
Very competitive.
Very competitive. I mean, let's
Right.
not forget, you not only competed in over 19 competitions, you placed in the top 5 like 5 times. Like, I don't even know what the numbers are. You won first place 5 times?
I put it behind me, Sarah.
You put it behind you, but a lot of times that you are literally at the top, like you are at the top of your game.
So, and I think also, you know, being in the industry that I'm in, I've been doing this for 20 years, being a kinesiologist, there's a lot of pressure to look a certain way, you know, and so I left the competitive scene in 2016, and, you know, it was just, my body was just done. You know, I was just ready to be done and start a family, you know, work on, you know, other things. And so because I was on such a calorie restricted diet, I returned to just eating normally. I was still exercising, but I wasn't working out for 3 hours a day. And in a very short amount of time, I had gained 30 pounds, like very, very short amount of time. And so, you know, I remember being in that competitive state, being 11% body fat and not being happy with my body, thinking I'm not lean enough. But then being 30 pounds, you know, it was very difficult to, you know, and you're working with clients and, you know, people are expecting you to look a certain way. It was a very difficult, like no one really talks about transitioning out of competitions, you know, and that was an element that I was really missing, was how am I gonna transition back to eating and exercising normally? And I think it's very different now, you know. fitness competitors are training a lot differently, they're dieting a lot differently, and they're really focused on that post-competitive phase, because there's such a huge mental component to it.
Yeah, and I'm sure you, in your business, you help people that do want to get to that level, because I know that you do train all sorts of different people.
Right.
So people that are wanting to compete, you will then help them to transition.
Absolutely.
Back to real life, because it isn't realistic to stay at that 11% or 10% or 12% body fat for an extensive period of time.
Well, there are certain body types, and I know of some women who are very lean, like naturally very, very lean, but others, like myself, may have to work a little harder at it, and it's just not their natural state.
Awesome. Well, after the break, we're going to learn the exact exercises we all need to be doing. Sarah's showing that after the break. Welcome back to Real Talk with Sarah. If you're just joining us, I've got Sarah Zahab here teaching us the most important exercises we all need to be doing if we want to keep ourselves moving. So Sarah, what are these exercises that you're going to teach us that we all need to be doing? Because we don't all need to be hitting a gym, going crazy every day. We need to be strengthening our bodies first, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
That's it. And I think it's, there's no real top 5 exercises for everybody, right? It's as we were mentioning, it's really important to focus on, your unique needs. Everybody should be moving. That's really, really important. But I've put together a handful of exercises that I think would benefit most people.
Cool.
And so the first exercise is a psoas glute activation.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you. What is the psoas? Where is the psoas? What does it do?
So the psoas is a hip flexor, and it's responsible for hip flexion. We're often seen using it when we're, walking, running, even in a seated position. We could be using it, and oftentimes people are told that they need to stretch their psoas, that their psoas is tight. But when we're performing our manual muscle testing, much of the time the psoas is neurologically weak. So I think it's important to focus on strengthening that muscle, getting a neurological connection with that muscle. And so this exercise is going to help to really connect with that deep, it's a lumbopelvic stabilizer, and it's also activating the opposite glute.
So what are we looking at on the video? What do we need to be making sure we're doing to be in proper form?
Right, so we're perfectly aligned. We're squeezing that standing glute, the weight is in that standing heel, and we're focusing on activating that deep core muscle to lift the leg. The leg is actually in a bit of external rotation, so it's kind of out to the side a little bit. The psoas needs to be, it's a bit of a lateral rotator as well. So we're looking at utilizing that muscle to do the lifting. We're also getting grounded through that standing glute max. So we're thinking standing glute, and then the working leg is the psoas that's activating. So we're moving the leg into hip flexion.
And this is going to help us in our daily lives by just not getting stiff and being able to just move more easily?
Well, it may help with that overall balance, right? Especially when it comes to the positioning of the pelvis. If the pelvis is in a bit of an anterior pelvic tilt, or if there's some SI joint, dysfunction, sometimes just working one muscle over another can help to bring and create that overall balance.
All right.
And we talked about the glute.
Yeah.
The glutes are an area that we often focus on. Oftentimes in our testing, we're seeing that the glutes are shut off or neurologically weak. And so I love this exercise, the O'Brien hip extension. We're often doing our glute exercises maybe in a bridge position or lying down. Love to do this over the ball. And this can be done maybe over a chair or even from an all fours position. But essentially that working leg is straight, kicking the heel up, focusing on extending the hip. So your glute max is your main hip extensor. And when that shuts off, we may overcompensate with the lumbar rectors or the hamstrings. And so
you're saying glute max, you mean the bum?
That's it. The biggest
the big
muscle.
part of the muscle.
Yes, that's it. The glute max, because there's also the glute med and the glute min.
And we're saying glute, but we mean gluteus medius,
right.
Gluteus maximus. Got it. Okay.
They have differing functions. And so the glute max is your main hip extensor. So in this exercise, we're just performing hip extension. So getting the leg up, trying to engage that working glute, and that other leg is bent, and you're pushing that knee gently into the ball, or it can be pushed into a chair.
Okay.
And that is engaging the opposite hip flexor, which prevents the pelvis from moving into an anterior tilt. So basically, pushing the knee in prevents your hips from your back from arching, and it's going to allow you to target and isolate that glute a little bit better.
Okay. All right. What's the next exercise
So
you
the
brought for
next
us?
exercise is the supported march.
Okay.
And a lot of people focus on the anterior abdominal musculature. This exercise is really going to focus on the deep abdominal musculature, the deep muscle, specifically the transverse abdominis. Much of your power comes from this area. The transverse is an anticipatory, it's an exhalatory muscle. Essentially, it's working when you're breathing, and it also needs to be working before you move your arms and your legs.
Wow.
Right? It moves. It works in anticipation of movement. So it's going to fire and protect your low back, your lumbar spine. It's going to provide you with that stability that you need. So isolating this muscle, really focusing on targeting those deep core stabilizers is going to help with potentially preventing low back pain, helping you with your posture and alignment, and helping with your overall power and strength.
All right, and the last exercise.
The T-spine rotation we utilize a lot. Rotation is involved in a lot of different elements in our lives. Even in gait, when we're walking, we still need an element of rotation, and we're not really doing enough rotation. So I love this one because you've got the leg kind of resting. It's on a foam roller here, but you can be using a pillow or books. And we're just focused on moving in through the T-spine. So we're opening up that arm, looking towards the hand, and really trying to get that rotation in through where the ribs are, so that we can allow for a greater ease of movement in our day-to-day activities, even things like buckling your seatbelt,
Okay,
shoulder
so
checks.
we're moving from side to side. I think what we're seeing on the screen is not the same exercise, but I will make sure that we do get that right exercise up, because I want to make sure that we get the right one. So we're on a foam roller.
That's right.
And we're going with our hand, and we're moving to the other side.
That's right. I think what we were looking at just there was the supported march exercise for that deep core.
Which is awesome.
Which is good.
Which is good too.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Here is the exercise. That's the one that we wanted to be showing. Okay.
Right. So in the other one, we were focused on moving the legs and engaging the core. And this one, we're focused on, opening up the arms and moving through where the ribs are, in through that mid-back area, getting that rotation in through the T-spine, thoracic spine.
Fantastic. Oh my gosh, those actually look kind of enjoyable to do. That doesn't feel like having to go to the gym.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here, Sarah.
Thanks,
I've loved
Sarah.
our time together. Be sure you visit continuumfitness.com to book a session with Sarah and to learn more. It's actually continuumfitness.ca. I just corrected myself.
It's okay.
And for one lucky winner, Sarah's brought an amazing prize. She's offering up a 3-hour package of personal training where you'll get an assessment, a customized workout plan, and a follow-up session. It's valued at $300. If you live locally, email us after the show or head over to the Rogers Facebook page and comment exercise prize for your chance to win. After the break, I'll have Tony Greco here talking about the power of mindset when it comes to exercise. Back in a moment. Well, when it comes to exercise, it's as much about mindset as it is about muscle. I mean, how often have we decided to hit the gym, but as soon as an excuse enters into our minds, we bail? Well, no more. We've got celebrity trainer, fitness expert, and life coach Tony Greco with us to share how we can all develop the right mindset to see our goals become realities. Welcome, Tony.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. So let's talk about it. The book.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to you, too. The book,
Thank
I mean,
you.
it's very simple.
Tell us why you wrote it. Tell us what we're going to get from reading it. What was the sort of process of you going through the writing of it?
Well, I wrote it because, all throughout my career, I find that when people come in to get better, whether they're trying to lose weight or just feel better, it's a starting point, right? People want to make that commitment to go in to a gym, and it's like, I got to lose weight, I got to get better. And what happens is, as soon as they come in, we do an assessment, and then during the first week, you start to kind of talk to people, and they start to open up. And what they do, it's like they really tell you about thoughts that are happening in their lives that maybe they kind of look at a personal trainer, someone that's like, giving them the advice to like share and try to progress with their own thoughts that are going on into their minds. So what happens is all of a sudden you're trying to make these people feel better physically, but mentally they're opening up to you.
Yeah.
And then the second week you become their psychiatrist, and then third week you're kind of like their doctor. And like Sarah said earlier, I mean, we kind of stick to what we do, right? Because everybody can bring the best out of people. But what was really neat is that I learned a lot, because I learned that not everybody is happy. As a matter of fact, everybody's unhappy. And I'm talking people that are financially secure, but they're not truly happy. Like I had one of my clients who's worth a lot of money, and one day, his wife came in and she said, "Can you call him?" I said, "For what?" She's like, "He's stressed." I'm like, "Stressed?" And it's like, I mean, because and that's one of the reasons why, that's just one experience. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, is that everything stems from the mind, what you're thinking, you're feeling.
It kind of makes me think of what even Sarah was just saying before. Her body image was, not where it wanted to be, and yet she was looking so physical. Your friend who's got all this money that we think, why would they be struggling and stressed? And they are. And they are. And you know what? There's pressure to do things. I find people don't do things for themselves. I mean, that was one of the greatest things, is that in the book you're going to see that, look, it's about you. And if I can share the progress with someone and they could change their life to believe in themselves, accept themselves, adjust, and acknowledge who they really truly are and what they truly want, then I've done my job. And so far, so good, because I've had a few people read the book from like different, facts of life. I mean, I had a busy lawyer read the book, and I asked him, I said, did it really inspire you? He's like, I think about it. I'm like, what do you like about it? And he's like, well, I like the hand system you use in there, because, I don't make the best food selection, so I know that I have to eat 5 times a day. I got to eat less more often. I got to graze every 3 to 4 hours and make a healthy food choice. I said, see, there you go. Because the misconception was that, if you eat, you're going to gain weight. Yes.
But it's what you eat. And that's like the biggest threshold. It's like, wait a minute, do you not work on a 24-hour clock? Well, if you drove your car to Toronto, I know I've done it many times, I've stopped at 4 gas stations. Because I know that I need to fill up with fuel.
Yeah, we need to refuel.
Exactly. The difference is with the body, it's like we ignore it. Oh, this is why we're feeling sluggish, or we're dehydrated, but we're going to reach for some food when really we need to. I mean, there's so many different things that you have to realize, but the point is you need to eat, because food is fuel.
Well, and also we can stop at those 4 gas stations, and you can choose, a whole grain sandwich maybe with some lean protein and an apple. And someone else can choose a double coffee and a bagel or a muffin or a cookie or something, right? Like it definitely has, it factors in what choices that we're making.
Exactly. And that's just a small little section in the book. I mean, the other one that was really neat is the fact that you rest, you rust, that you got to keep moving. I mean, Sarah was touching on it, how sin is the new smoke, and it's true. I mean, people just don't move enough. And I don't mean move where you're going to lift heavy weights or you're doing cardio, but you know what, just take a nice walk, park your car on the furthest spot, rather than like go around in a circle and try to look for that closest spot. It's like, honey, like you would have been there before. Like, come on. So it's just little things like that, and that requires mind shift. I get it, I know it, because I'm constantly learning. But I'm learning from people that I've worked with, and it's like, this is pretty neat. That's one of the greatest things, and I'm very grateful for it, is that people were able to share those experiences, and now I was able to write about it and share that with people. So that way, when you read the book, there's certain chapters there'll be an example, for instance, where it'll be, well, you could relate this experience to your own life. So it puts you back in kind of like you, not me, because it's not about me, it's about you. It's about you having your strong mind and your lean body. And what I mean by it is that if you feel good about yourself, you technically are going to do things a lot better than people that don't feel good about themselves.
So how do you help us to feel good about yourselves when we read this book?
Well, there's exercises in there. Like, here's a simple one that I tell people, because everybody's concern is, well, I want to lose weight. I want to look good. I want to feel good. I said, okay, well, great. What are you doing about it? But you got to believe it, first of all, and you got to see it. So I always say, you got to play this film in your mind of who you are and what you want. So one of the things I do is I say, Well, during the day, how often do you take the time to breathe? So here's a simple drill. You take the time to get up in the morning and you just take a good deep breath. You inhale, you absorb all the good. I'm alive, it's beautiful, and yeah, sometimes we forget about that. We really do. Yeah, and when you do that, you start to engage and start to feel good. So it's like
I have a nice warm bed that I'm waking up in. There's coffee smell in the kitchen.
Like, you got
I have a hot shower to go to.
Absolutely.
Yes.
People will look outside and be like, oh, it's a rainy day. It's going to be a crappy day. Whereas you could say, you know what? It's a rainy day. This is a great day to maybe read a book, Strong Mind, Lean Body, or maybe listen to some nice music and I'm going to make the best of it. It's just the way you think. So the way you do that is you take big deep breaths, and then what you have to do is you have to visualize on what you're trying to do and what actions going forward that you're taking to accomplish that. And then what you have to do, and that could be like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, because I don't know everybody's kind of vision, but if you have a direction or a goal that you're trying to pursue, it's like, okay, so let's give you an example here. So let's say someone that's right now saying, I want to lose 10 pounds.
Yep.
Okay, great. So I'm going to get up in the morning. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to connect with myself. Now I'm going to start with a light 30-minute walk. Then, you know, for breakfast, for instance, if I had something with a lot of sugar, maybe a bowl of cereal that I thought was healthy, you know what? I'm going to change that up now. I might have like a smoothie, or I might have just some eggs, and I'll just get some egg whites because I'm going to get a little bit more protein. Just little changes like that. Then it's like, well, wait a minute. Now I'm going to schedule my lunch hour half an hour earlier because I might go for another walk. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go for a gym. I'm just trying to paint a picture for someone or create their movie.
Yeah.
But then what you have to do is you have to create another movie in your mind which allows you to take those actions forward. Because saying and doing are two different things.
I was just going to say, we can all sit around and say, I'm going to do this stuff, I'm going to visualize it all, but then we got to do the work.
You got to do the work. So you have to have integrity with yourself and go, that's it, I'm doing it. And one of the things I started to do in my life is, because I work with a lot of athletes, and a lot of these athletic teams, they either win or lose. Right? Yeah. And us as sports fans go, oh, they lost, I got to get better, or whatever the case may be. So what I like to do is every day, at the end of the day, take about an hour to my time and say, wait a minute, did I win today or did I lose? Well, what is a win? A win is, you know, bettering yourself, doing something for yourself, doing something for somebody else, just all the positive stuff. And then a loss would be, oh, I should have done this. I forgot to do this. I should have got to this. So it's kind of like stepping back from this fast-paced world and really taking care of yourself. So when you do that, that'd be a win. And what happens is if you have more wins at the end of the month than a loss, then you're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
But if you have more loss, it's like, wait a minute, we got to get back to action. And this is another chapter in the book that I really like, and it's who you are and what you want.
Yeah, that's kind of your tagline,
That's kind of my tag. And it's like, well, wait a minute, and I'll ask the same question. So it's like, what do you want? And they're like, well, what do you mean? Well, what makes you happy? What makes you tick? What's your purpose? Why do you get up in the morning? Is it to look good? Is it to feel good? Is it to make more money so you could be financially more secure? What is it? And they're like, oh, is it money? Okay, so how much is it? What would make you happy? If I had this magic wand and I'm going, okay, what is it? Yeah. And it's funny because I do this in the talks and people are like, I said, I'll come back to you. Yeah. Get ready to give me that number. So what I'm trying to get at is that, and it's a simple exercise you can do. So if it's a financial goal, then on a scale of 1 to 10, let's say 1 being the worst or 10 being the best, what is that number? And you just kind of put that little dot on a piece of paper. Okay. Then your, for instance, your relationship. Are you happy being with that person? Are you not happy? Where is it? Is it rocky? Is it okay? And you put that dot. And then your work. I mean, for me, they go, you're so passionate. I say, yeah, because it's not really work. And I'm sure it's the same for you. It's like, I mean, yeah, you got to be just grateful and be happy because people feel that. So you got to be happy doing what you're doing. And I know a lot of people are not happy.
And I would say that a lot of people aren't happy in that day-to-day job, but it doesn't mean that you might not be able to take on a hobby or something where you can have that fire and passion. I don't believe anybody's stuck ever, but I know that there are people that think they are kind of stuck in what they are doing as far as a job and a career, and they can't just, quit the job and do what they would love to do. But you can still bring it into your world, can't you?
You can, and that's one of the greatest gifts we have in our lives is the freedom to make whatever choice you want to make. So you just have to, like, you know what? Get back to you. Like, only you can make this decision. But it's funny because what happens is, success breeds success. When you start to create this positive energy, like, people are like, wow, what are you on? It's like positive energy. And it's like, it just, there's so many people that we're so grateful because we have such a great city and great resources that we could just learn and help uplift people that, the toxic energy, you just want to draw yourself away. Like, people, oh, can you do that? Well, what if, no. I'm going to do it.
Yes.
Like, and that's just the mind shift, because one step closer is a lot better than, one step further. And again, shifting gears here, one of the chapters in the books, I'm always referring to the book, is Seeking the Gold Medal. I was very blessed to win a gold medal for Canada in 1995
for kickboxing.
In kickboxing. And I could tell you my own close friends that at the time that I thought were friends, and it's just a mind shift. It's like, well, maybe he might win a bronze, but I don't know if they win gold. Like, it's just this immediate negative thought that
your friends were doubting that you
were
could do
doubting,
it.
and it's like, and I get a high off of negativity. Like, when people say, "Oh, you can't do it," I'm like, "Watch me," right? That's just the way I am, and I think a lot of it, and I think we all have a story, is based on experiences. It's like, if you think you can't, well, you can. If you think you can, you're right. So, and it's all these experiences in everybody's lives that they should be going through this film that they play in their mind going, hey, I remember back here I did this, and that someone said I couldn't do it, but I did it. So that's a high. That's uplifting.
So like a life map.
A life map.
Through,
and if you could do that, then it's like you'll be able to deflect negativity. Because, it's not an easy task to do. And some people will buckle, or some people will just kind of, stick their chests out and be proud and go, okay, watch me, right? So it's your choice. And that's one of the greatest things that we have, is the ability to do that. So there's a lot of great chapters in the book. And but going back to finishing that actual wheel that everybody's trying to accomplish is relationships, financial security, being happy at what you do. But the most important thing is the health. Where is your health on a scale of 1 to 10? Are you making better choices in as far as your diet goes? Are you moving? Are you taking care of yourself? Because I think true health is true wealth. I
absolutely agree. When we think about it, it really is the only thing that's most important. Ralph Lauren just celebrated 50 years in the fashion industry, and he had a brain aneurysm or a tumor that he had removed, and he was saying that as soon as he got sick, he was taken out of life. He's like, I was treated differently, everything stopped, everything changed. So I think that we can't overestimate the power of taking care of our health, and taking care of our mental health and our minds goes right along with taking care of our physical health. That was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. And thank you for bringing in 2 signed copies of the book. Thank you so much, Tony. If you live here in the Ottawa area and you would like to win a signed copy of Tony's new book, Strong Mind, Lean Body, you're going to email us or head over to the Rogers Facebook page after the show and comment "win the book," and we're going to pick 2 winners at random. When we come back, I'll share my final thoughts. Back in a moment. Thank you so much.
It's awesome.
Perhaps like you, I was an active kid. I loved to move, and I relished being outside, doing gymnastics on the front lawn, riding my bike all around the neighborhood, and swimming in our pool with my friends. But once I discovered alcohol and slowly became addicted, things changed. I stopped moving my body other than to get from point A to point B. And I found myself almost judging people who worked out, thinking they were fanatical or that they were overly obsessed with their bodies. I spent my entire 20s avoiding exercise. Mornings were a write-off, as I was too busy hitting snooze and then scrambling to get to work on time to make exercise even a remote possibility. I chose late nights with wine over a walk after dinner. And it wasn't until I got sober that I made the connection between how I moved and how I felt. Nowadays, I can't imagine a day where I don't do something to move my body, and I work out as much for my mental health as I do for my physical health. If exercise isn't a habit for you, I encourage you to think about the way you moved when you were a child. Whatever brought you joy then has the capacity to bring you joy now. Sure, you may have to modify things a little as you get started, but I promise you, once you get moving, even just for a few weeks, you won't know how you lived without it for so long. Thank you to my guests, Sarah Zahab and Tony Greco, for helping us uncover what really matters when it comes to exercise. And thank you for being here with me as we continue our journey together. Until next week, I want you to remember one thing, that no matter where you are, and no matter how it feels, you are never, ever alone. See you next week.